Hello, my beautiful people. Well, better late than never, I always say. That, that was my Shrek reference. Yes, today we're going to be talking about the Fairly Odd Parents, Fairly Odder. Wow, that is a terrible title. So, when I first heard that this show was going to be happening a few years ago, I was just like, oh, wow. They're probably just gonna take the show, bring it into live action again, and just make it really, really worse. Because clearly Nickelodeon didn't learn their lesson on how Fairly Odd Parents doesn't really work in live action. Well, after watching the show, yeah, it's really, really bad. Like, I came in with this show with zero expectations, and it's still just ungodly horrible. Don't get me wrong, I wanted this show to be good. It's a reboot of one of my favorite cartoons from back in the day. Why wouldn't I want it to be good? But then the trailer was released, and it looked awful. And then I actually watched the show, and it was even worse. Newsflash, if something looks awful, apparently it's awful. The Fairly Odd Parents works in animation because of the limitless imagination and possibilities that they could do with the wishes. And when you bring that in live action, there's like limitations. So the amount of stuff you can wish for, especially when it's on the budget of iCarly. So the basis of the show are pretty similar to the original series. You have this kid who is the cousin of Timmy Turner, Vivian Turner, and she's granted access to Cosmo and Wanda by Timmy Turner in order for them to grant her every wish. But her new stepbrother Roy accidentally walks in on them. So now they're Roy's fairies too, because that's how it works. Vivian had just moved to Dimsdale, and she's miserable because she's moving to a new town. And wait a minute. So that is what it takes to be miserable in order for you to have fairy godparents now?
Okay.
I don't think Viv needs fairies. Like, you look at Timmy's life freaking sucked. He had a teacher who was out to get him. His parents were neglectful and constantly left him with an evil babysitter. His crutch didn't know he existed. He only had like 2 friends who were just as unpopular as he was. Vivian has a mean teacher. She just moved in from out of town. That's about it. But a character who makes even less sense in order for them to have fairies has got to be Roy, her stepbrother. Because, oh my god, this kid is beloved by literally everybody around him. He has a whole big group of friends. Everybody at school loves him. He has a very loving mother. Everybody loves this kid. He seems to be very, very happy. He does not need fairy godparents at all. This kid is freaking Chloe Carmichael all over again. Only this time, he is 10 times more annoying than Chloe.
She loves it! New sister, let's go!
God, I wish to blow his freaking brains out. And speaking of wishes, let's talk about Cosmo and Wanda. Cosmo and Wanda, being the titular Fairly Odd Parents in the Fairly Odd Parents, played a huge role in the original series, of course, being there all the time by Timmy's side to not only grant him wishes, but to also give him some life lessons along the way, serving the parent part in fairy godparents, along with the fairy. I mean, Cosmo and Wanda were meant to represent Timmy's parents in a way. I mean, for the love of God, Timmy's parents and Cosmo and Wanda are literally voiced by the same voice actors. Timmy's mom and Wanda shares a voice actor, and Cosmo and Timmy's dad shares a voice actor. But in Fairly Odder, Cosmo and Wanda are barely in the show. They're mainly just there to grant wishes, occasionally pop up from time to time to see how things are going, And that's it. And when they do show up, they're usually there to make really, really bad jokes.
I've heard sick cats that sing better than that.
Yeah, like in that movie Cats. Those were some sick kitties. Meow.
Do you get it? Because Wanda said that she sounded like a cat, and Cosmo pooped into a cat from the musical Cats because they looked pretty weird in the movie Cats. Do you get the joke? You get the joke? Oh my God, Butch Hartman, you're so funny.
And it's not just Cosmo and Wanda who make terrible jokes throughout this series, of course. All of the jokes, or at least most of the jokes in this show, are just awful to the downright cringe, to some of them that are hilarious for all the wrong reasons. Like, I'm sure you have seen those comedies where you laugh, but not at the reason that the joke wanted you to. You laugh and be like, what the frick was that? That happens a lot at the time with this show. This show is still written as if they were trying to make it a cartoon. Like, the characters still talk very, very fast. Some of the shenanigans they get into. And it definitely still has those Butch Hartman quirks. Like, characters screaming as an excuse for a joke. And of course, we can't forget Butch Hartman's signature. And then, the opposite happens. I don't think it's that unpopular of an opinion to state that this show would have been a whole lot better if it was fully animated. They could have had a whole lot more opportunities to do the crazy stuff that they really want to do. Like, for instance, there's this episode where a giant monster attacks, and it's literally just a Godzilla costume that you could buy on Amazon with a fish head on top of it. They were that lazy. They even got lazy with some of the simplest things, like the set of the school. Look at it! It looks like they didn't even finish painting it. Like, what the frick? There's also some golden opportunities for them to bring back some old characters, but they just don't for some reason. Like, I can name 3 right off the top of my head. There was an episode where they had a bunch of pop stars show up, and not one of them was Chip Skylark. They also have a recurring news reporter who's not Jeffy Bessem. Instead, it's this lady who main gimmick is that she's very strict and very serious, except when she's not. And there's also the mayor of Dimsdale. Now, mayors do change year to year, so it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't be the exact same mayor, but it would have been kind of fun to have it be the same mayor, and with the goat and everything, you know, Chompy. But instead, the mayor is a baby, and it has a translator. I see, that's another example on how stuff that would be kind of funny in a cartoon can just be kind of really, really awkward in live action. And then we have the animation. Oh God, the animation. Now let's talk about the live action and animation hybrids, because that is where the majority of the animation comes from in this show. It is very bad. They included some weird shading on Cosmo and Wanda, and it just does not make them blend well in the world at all. And they did some subtle redesigns to them that just make them look really off. Of course, you have the standard, these actors are having a hard time trying to communicate with things that aren't there. But that's just standard for hybrids like these. But then we get to some of the scenes that are fully animated, and they're even worse. Like, they are very choppy, very stiff. Like, there's this one scene in the finale where Jorgen von Strangle is literally, like, hovering over the floor. Not standing, he's just hovering there, and he's moving like this. Puny human! Puny fairy! Something like that. And they also have front-facing Crocker, which somehow looks even more horrifying than front-facing Phineas. I didn't think it was possible to do that, but you did it, Fairly Odd Parents, Fairly Odder. You managed to make front-facing Phineas look normal. Why didn't they just draw him normally? Like, seriously, why didn't they just draw him normally? And yeah, for some reason, whenever they want to show pictures of characters from the old show, they'll show animated pictures of them, like they're drawings of them, like in the original show. Like, nobody questions that. Nobody questions how this random picture of someone you actually know is a cartoon character. Like, did someone actually drew that in real world? Or, like, was the universe once animated and, like, did some kid wish for the world to be live action and nobody questioned it afterwards? Oh my god, that actually sounds like a pretty ingenious episode. They should have just done that. They should have just made the whole show animated and just have one episode where the kids say like, I wish that we looked more three-dimensional. Or say something like, I wish everything had depth to it. And then, you know, it's live action for an episode. It would be cute. It would be fun. But no, it just had the whole series be live action with like 2 minutes of animation per episode. You go to see the Fairly Odd Parents reboot, and what do you get? Barely of any Fairly Odd Parents. Like, who is this show for? Is it supposed to be for kids? Well, you know, this show does have a lot of weird adult jokes sometimes, and it also has a lot of reference to the original series that these kids won't understand. So is it supposed to be for the Fairly Odd Parents fans? Well, no, because a lot of the jokes, a lot of the main jokes, and the style and the format is similar to a lot of the current shows on Nickelodeon, which all suck. Speaking of feeling like a current show from Nickelodeon, the laugh track. Oh my god, the laugh track. It is painfully horrible. Like, it just makes you want to just throw something out the window. Like, oh god. This show did not need a laugh track. It would have worked just fine without it. And it makes every funny joke it could have had even worse. And all of the unfunny ones just infamously horrendous. And sometimes, like a lot of other Nickelodeon shows, they will put a laugh track over something which I don't even think was supposed to be funny. But you're supposed to laugh because the laugh track said so. Now there's one thing in this show that I think is genuinely really, really good. And that is what they did with Vicky. Okay, mostly what they did with Vicky. By the end, they kind of screwed her over, but for the most part, I think they handled Vicky very well. Basically, Vicky is a teacher now, which is already a pretty funny progression of her character. And eventually, she finds the Crocker cave and Crocker's fairy conspiracies, and she remembers all the weird stuff that would happen when she babysat Timmy. Okay, this is a really cool idea. You know, it continues the events of the original series, and it expands some characters that we know and love. The problem is that, one, when we actually get to see Crocker, well, Crocker is a lot of fun. I won't deny that. He's the only animated character to show up in the show who's actually played by his original voice actor, and he's a lot of fun. But when he actually goes into Fairy World, he does absolutely nothing. Like, nothing happens. He goes to Fairy World, and he gets captured off screen and thrown into fairy prison, and there's a cliffhanger from season 2. Like, they think they're gonna get a season 2 out of this one. And Vicky's motivation is that she is madly in love with Crocker, which, you know, I don't want to think about that. You know, just the thought of Vicky and Crocker getting together and hooking up, that just, no, man, why would you do that? It's just gross. I know Vicky's is technically an adult now, but come on, man, that's just wrong. So what are my overall thoughts on the Fairly Odd Parents Fairly Odder? Oh, you bet your socks that it is bad. This is yet another example of Fairly Odd Parents media that the show really should have ended at Channel Chasers. But anyway, guys, what did you guys think of the Fairly Odd Parents Fairly Odder? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when future videos are uploaded. We are trying to get to 300 subscribers by the end of the year in order for me to make a giant video talking about every SpongeBob video game. So if you want to see that video, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. But until next time, I'll see you later. Bye!